Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to go over part 1D of the test 1 practice questions. So this is about functions. So we have three very simple functions that are defined for this part, and then basically a bunch of different calls to the functions down below. And some of these calls are like plugged into other function calls. So it's important that you understand how values are passed to functions and how they're returned from functions in order to do this part. So let's look at the three functions here first and just make sure we understand what they do. So the first function, f of n, we plug in something called n. I guess it's a number because we're doing division. So we take n, we get the remainder after division by 3, and then we're checking whether that remainder is equal to 0 or not. So this part right here, because of the equal equals, this whole thing here is going to return either true or false. So this is going to return true. So if the remainder after division by 3 is 0, that means the number was divisible by 0. If n is divisible by 0, and then otherwise it's going to return false. Okay, if the remainder was not 0, then the number was not divisible by 3. So basically this is a function that checks whether n is divisible by 3. So important to understand that to answer these questions down here more easily. All right, g of s and t. So this is s is squared plus t squared, and then raised to the 0.5 power is the square root. So this is the square root of s squared plus t squared. So this is basically the distance formula, or like the hypotenuse of a triangle formula. So if s and t are the two sides of the triangle, the two legs of a right triangle, then this will give you the hypotenuse. Or you can think of it as the distance formula. Okay, so hypotenuse returns hypotenuse. Triangle with legs s and t, right triangle, sorry. Or you can think of it as like the vector magnitude formula. There's different ways to think of it. All right, and then the last one, this is a little bit strange, but you're doing the integer version of division by 3. So you're checking how many times does 3 go into n. And remember, if there's a remainder, that remainder is just being left out. There's no decimals or anything. This is just going to return an integer. How many times does 3 go into n? And then we are multiplying that by 3. So this is a little bit harder to summarize as like a particular, as having like a particular meaning that you're already familiar with. But let's say, for example, if we did like 11, 3 goes into 11 3 times, and then we're multiplying that by 3, so then we would get 9. So it's basically like the nearest multiple of 3 that's less than n. I can think of it like that. Returns nearest multiple of 3 less than or equal to n. Okay, but even if you weren't able to figure out kind of like what the purpose of these formulas was, you could still hopefully at least just calculate them. All right, so now let's go through these questions here. So g of 3 comma 4. So we're going to go to the g function. We are plugging in 3 for s and 4 for t. So we're doing 3 squared, it's 9, plus 4 squared, that's 16. So 9 plus 16 is 25. And then we're doing the square root of that. So square root of 25 is 5. And that is going to come back as a float, so 5.0. And you might remember the 3, 4, 5 triangles, so that's why I use 3 and 4. So you get 5 for the hypotenuse. Makes the numbers a little easier. Oh, right, we do need to actually run this block here that has the definition of the functions in it before we can run these blocks down here. Okay, so now h of 11. Oh, I think that was the one I used in the example, right? So we're going to plug in 11 for n. So we're doing 11 double slash 3. 3 goes into 11 3 times. Then we're multiplying that by 3. So 3 times 3. So we're going to get 9. And that is going to be an integer, because double slash gives us back an integer. Okay, now we're doing h of 11. So this is a little bit tricky, but we have what h of 11 is from the last question, right? We know that's 9. So when Python is evaluating this down here, it's just going to plug in 9 like that for h of 11. Okay, it's going to literally replace that h of 11 with the return value of 9 from what we figured out in the last question. So all we need to know is what is h of 9. So this will be h of 9, which is, so how many times does 3 go into 9? It goes in 3 times, and then we're multiplying that by 3, so we just get 9 again. Okay, so this will be 9 again. f of high. So if I put the string high into this function up here for n, I'm first doing high %3, not a thing. It's not a thing you can do. You can't do a string %3. So this is going to give us an error. Yeah, okay. All right, so next one here, f of h of 11. So this is another one where it's important that we figure out what h of 11 is first. So we already know that's 9, right? So when Python is evaluating this, it's replacing the h of 11 with 9. So we really just need to know what is f of 9. Okay, so this will be f of 9. So what is f of 9? Looking back up here. So we're checking what is the remainder after division of 9 by 3. So we do 9 divided by 3, we get the remainder of 0. So that remainder of 0 is equal to 0. So this is going to return true. Okay, so this will be true. All right, next one, f of g of 3, 4. So we have to first figure out what is g of 3, 4. So start inside the parentheses. We did do g of 3, 4 up here, and we figured out that was 5.0. So this will be f of 5.0. So we go to the f function, put in where'd it go? Go to the f function, put in 5.0 for n. Okay, what is 5.0% 3? So remainder after division of 5 by 3. 3 goes into 5 one time, leaves a remainder of 2, or 2.0 since we're using floats. 2.0 is not equal to 0. So this will be false. Okay. Right, we can just make sure. Yep, false. Okay, now the next one, g of 0, 1, or sorry, 0, negative 1. So we're plugging in 0 and negative 1 into g. So 0 is going to be s, negative 1 is going to be t. So 0 squared is 0, negative 1 squared is 1. And then we're doing the square root of 0 plus 1, so just the square root of 1, and that is 1. So this is going to be 1, or rather 1.0, because we're using decimals here, it's all going to be coming out as a float. So it's going to be 1.0. Okay, and then for the very last one, we are plugging that g of 0, negative 1 answer into the f function. Okay, so this will be f of 1.0. And going back to the f function, again, that's the function that checks whether something is a multiple. Oh, did I put 0 here? Why did I put that? It should be 3. Returns true if n is divisible by 3. But if you didn't remember that, or if you hadn't figured that out, you could just check here. You're going to be doing 1.0 division by 3. What's the remainder of dividing 1 by 3? Okay, so 3 goes into 1 0 times, so that leaves the entire number of 1 as the remainder. 1 is not equal to 0. Okay, so this is going to be false. And there we go. So that is all of that part, and I will resume the video in the next part.